In the bustling hospitals of the 19th century Europe, a silent killer lurked in the shadows of maternity wards, claiming the lives of mothers at an alarming rate. Despite the rapid advancements in medicine, one unexplained disease continued to perplex doctors and patients alike: childbed fever. Against this increasingly grave crisis, a young Hungarian doctor began to notice a disturbing pattern, something that seemed to elude his peers' attention until now. What he discovered would shake the foundations of medicine and change the course of history, but not without a terrible cost. This is the legacy of Ignaz Semmelweis, a man whose radical ideas would save countless lives, but at a great sacrifice. But how did he do it? Ignaz Semmelweis was born on July 1, 1818, into a relatively well-to-do family in what is now known as Budapest in Hungary. He initially studied law, but soon turned to medicine, an area that captivated his interest. Semmelweis attended the University of Vienna, where he graduated in 1844 as a physician. He was shortly employed at the Vienna General Hospital. However, his discovery would not begin until July 1, 1846, when, at the age of 28, he was appointed first assistant in obstetrics in the first division of the hospital. It was here, in the maternity ward, that he made observations that would change medical history. In the 1830s, maternity clinics in Vienna were divided into two divisions, each headed by a professor. However, starting 1840 onwards, only medical students were taught in the first division, while in the second division, births were attended to by midwives. Alarmingly, the death rates were higher in the wards supervised by the doctors, particularly from childbed fever, also more commonly known as puerperal fever. The fatal disease presented a grim reality for unfortunate mothers, characterized by raging fevers, foul-smelling pus emerging from the birth canal, excruciating abscesses in the abdomen and chest, and an irreversible descent into a complete hell of sepsis and death, all within 3 days after child delivery. It was a rampant disease in all of Europe's maternity clinics at the time, often resulting in epidemics with fatality rates as high as 10%. In Vienna's first division of the maternity clinic, the rate of maternal death was approximately 9%, which was 3 times more than that of the second division. Several committees conducted investigations into the issue, yet none could determine the underlying cause. Theories ranged from miasma or bad air to dietary deficiencies and emotional struggles among the mothers. Others were even more absurd, suggesting that the women felt embarrassed at being examined by male doctors. Unfortunately, none of these theories provided a viable explanation, doing little to alleviate the crisis. Maternal mortality rates in European hospitals remained high, between 10 and 35%, while some hospitals reported nearly half of their maternity patients contracting the infection. The disease had gotten out of hand, and the doctors were almost helpless in stopping its spread. Vienna General Hospital was no exception. The doctor-run maternity ward, to which Semmelweis had been assigned, had a mortality rate well over 3 times that of the midwives' ward just across the hall. This disparity was not only stark, but also perplexing. Witnessing the devastating effects of the illness on young women and their families, Semmelweis was determined to find the cause and the solution. To accomplish this, before beginning his daily ward rounds, he personally performed autopsies on all the mothers who had passed away from childbed fever the previous day. He intuitively knew it was something more than bad air or diet. But what could it be? In 1847, Ignaz Semmelweis' research took a heartbreaking yet valuable turn. Dr. Jacob Koletzka, his colleague and friend, died from a mysterious infection that he contracted after being accidentally cut by a medical student's scalpel during an autopsy. To Semmelweis' horror, Koletzka showed symptoms very much like childbed fever, the highly fatal condition that had been claiming the lives of many mothers. This tragedy sparked a revolutionary epiphany. The same doctors who were bound to save lives were the ones unknowingly spreading death. Semmelweis theorized that the doctors and medical students were transferring cadaverous particles of the corpses examined during autopsies to maternity patients through their hands, causing the deadly childbed fever among mothers. It was a horrifying thought, yet a plausible one. At the time, it was common practice for doctors to go directly from the morgue into the delivery areas without washing their hands, a habit that the midwives, who did no autopsies, did not share. This, Semmelweis realized, was the key difference that could explain the much lower incidence of childbed fever among the patients delivered by midwives. But how could he stop it? Semmelweis' solution was as simple as it was revolutionary: hand washing. He hypothesized that if doctors washed their hands before examining pregnant women, the transfer of these particles, and with them the infections, could be stopped. However, he did not stop at mere washing with water. He insisted that doctors scrub their hands with a chlorine solution, which he believed was the only sure way to remove cadaverous particles from hands. The results were immediate and unquestionable. In an almost instant change, the rate of mortality in the maternity ward fell from 18 to just 1%. Women who just weeks before would be at the mercy of the childbed fever now left healthy and vibrant, all because of this simple but profound change in hygiene. Yet, despite Semmelweis' highly successful hand-washing program, he often found himself in conflict with the medical community. His discovery challenged two significant beliefs in disease and infection. First, doctors found it hard to believe they might have been responsible for their patient's death. Germs, or even microorganisms, were not widely understood then. Most doctors subscribed to the humoral theory, which linked illnesses with fluid imbalances within the body, or the miasma theory, which cited bad air was the origin of disease. The idea that something invisible on the hands could cause deadly infections sounded absurd to many. Secondly, Semmelweis' blunt and confrontational demeanor did little to help the man's cause. Frustrated by the medical community's resistance to his methods, Semmelweis' brilliant career unraveled in a series of clashes with hospital administrators and colleagues. He was eventually dismissed from his post in Vienna, and his life-saving practice of washing one's hands was discarded. The following years after leaving Vienna, Semmelweis returned to his native country, Hungary, where he was appointed chief of obstetrics at St. Rochus Hospital in Budapest. Here, he continued his work in promoting hand hygiene, successfully reducing women's mortality once more by enforcing his hand-washing routine. In 1861, he presented his research in a book, but it was poorly accepted and largely disregarded by the medical community. The stigma of the rejection and mockery from the medical fraternity in Vienna and now in Budapest left him bitter and emotionally unstable. Semmelweis' attitude towards his co-workers most likely played a role in his downfall. His peers characterized him as arrogant, bitter, and quick to humiliate others publicly. The vocal criticism of the doctors who refused to accept his findings became intensive to the extent that he referred to them as thoughtless murderers for allowing such needless deaths of mothers. In his anger, he even wrote open letters to prominent European doctors, accusing them of careless killings of mothers during childbirth. By the 1860s, Semmelweis was experiencing a severe mental health decline. Some historians believe that he may have suffered from a mental illness, while others suggest that the psychological toll of being shunned by his colleagues contributed significantly to his breakdown. His behavior became increasingly erratic, perhaps as a result of severe syphilis or dementia. In 1865, his colleagues enticed him into visiting a mental facility. Upon realizing their intentions, he objected and attempted to leave, but the guards forcibly detained him. During his confinement, Semmelweis was violently beaten and subjected to harsh treatments, including castor oil, which was used as a potent laxative at the time. 2 weeks into his asylum detention, Ignaz Semmelweis, aged 47, died of an infection of a wound on his right hand, possibly sustained during the beating by the guards. Ironically, he fell victim to an infection similar to the one he had dedicated his life to eradicating, as revealed by an autopsy. Although Semmelweis did not live to see it, his work was eventually vindicated. In the late 19th century, Louis Pasteur's germ theory of disease and Joseph Lister's development of antiseptic techniques provided the scientific foundation for Semmelweis's observations. Gradually, the medical community realized the importance of hand hygiene in preventing infections, and hospitals worldwide implemented hand washing as a standard practice. Today, Semmelweis is celebrated as the savior of mothers, a man whose persistence in the face of opposition laid the groundwork for modern antiseptic practices. The World Health Organization now promotes hand hygiene as one of the highest priorities in preventing the spread of infections in healthcare facilities. His story is a strong reminder that one man's determination to challenge the status quo can alter the course of history, and that any progress comes at a price. Though Semmelweis' ideas may have been rejected in his own time, they definitely paved the way for a safer and more humane approach to medicine. While debates may persist regarding the underlying cause of the mental illness that led to Semmelweis' admission, there can never be any question as to his genius, creativity, commitment to his patients, and lasting legacy. That's Ignaz Semmelweis, a genius who changed medicine forever, or a tragic figure forgotten by history. Your thoughts could reshape his legacy. Let us know in the comments below.